Hello, welcome back to Tay Radio, everyone. I'm your host, Anna Reyes.
I'm your co-host, Santi Hernandez.
I'm your co-host, Javier Vicuna.
On today's show, we have a special guest who's going to talk about Maya. And Maya is a separate program from an organization called Center for Domestic Peace. And so we're very excited to have our guest on and talk a little bit more and bring awareness of how to prevent domestic abuse and just in general inform you guys. We would like our guest to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Gretsman Zabek. I'm part of Maya.
Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your hobbies or what you plan to do in the future? What's your interests?
Sure thing. I like to play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends a lot. It's a really good way for us to de-stress and kind of just immerse ourselves in a fantasy world. And I also really enjoy reading and just watching YouTube videos as well.
That's really nice. And we want to thank you for coming on in the show and introducing yourself to the people who are watching here on the show as well. And before we do go on to our PSA, we do want to talk a little bit some current events that is happening right now that deals with domestic abuse and victims who are dealing with domestic abuse. So Gretsman, do you have any facts that will tell us a little bit more what's happening right now?
Yeah, I do. So during the pandemic with COVID-19, the percentage of people who are experiencing domestic abuse and don't have a way to really report it or get help has significantly increased. Whether that's due to they don't have a safe space to, go on their phone to kind of hide from their abuser that they're contacting someone to get help, or that they're telling someone who may be able to support them. And they also don't have that opportunity to go out, maybe say the victim is a student. They don't have that opportunity to get outside and away from their abuser as they would pre-COVID times. So it's dramatically increased the instances of domestic abuse and reported cases.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I did want to inform our audience that Gretsman is actually and I are part of Maya as well. So I am in the same program as her, and I can totally agree that there's like a lot of people who feel closed doors, like they feel trapped because they don't have that excuse of saying, oh, I'm gonna go to the grocery store instead of actually going to the Center of Domestic Peace to like ask for help. So it has some impacts to people during this pandemic, during this hard time. But thank you, Gretsman, for adding into those facts. And we'll be right back after this PSA.
Are you in an unhealthy relationship? Are you a victim of a crime? Need someone to talk to? Well, the Victim Witness Program is able to help you by giving you the support and help that you need to be safe. You can call the Victim Witness Program at 415-473-5080. Again, the number is 415-473-5080.
Welcome back. That was the PSA, and we hope that was helpful. We were last talking about some current events about relating to domestic abuse, and I also introduced Gretsman, who's our guest on this show. And I first want to ask her a little bit about what is Maya.
So Maya is a committee within Center for Domestic Peace, and it stands for Marin Against Youth Abuse. And so what we kind of do in Maya is mainly students, I think, but other young people join, and we are trained to be peer counselors. So if someone comes up to us, say a friend, we have the tools to be able to better respond to them and how to help them and be able to give them the resources if they are ready to leave their abusive relationship or situation. And yeah, I would say that's really the gist of it.
When was Maya first founded?
Maya was first founded in 1977, so it's been about, I think, 44 years since it's been first established.
What made you want to join Maya?
Initially, I just saw a small announcement about it on my school's newsletter. And so I was a tad bit interested, and so I was like, okay, I'll check this out. I didn't know what Maya was before then, and now that I've joined it, I've seen that it's really something that should be given more awareness to, so that way more young people will be able to better give resources to other people that they know who may be in these types of situations.
Great. And when did you join Maya?
Around November last year. So I've only been part of Maya for about a couple months now.
And are there still people, are people still able to join right now during the pandemic?
I think so. I will have to do a bit more research on that, but I think it's open to join still.
Okay. And what time and day are like the usual meetings?
So we meet bi-weekly, so on the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. And it's typically from 4 to 5:30, or 4:30 to 5:30, sorry.
Thank you, Gretsman, for adding some information about the meetings. And I think if anyone's actually interested in joining, you can always contact Jonathan. You can contact him through, I think, Center of Domestic Peace. And there's like a website, like a tab for Maya, and you can contact him through there. There might be a different name or a Gmail, so you can always like go through that Gmail and contact them if you can join in. And I'm sure they'll let you in because they would like as much people to learn more about how to be a peer counselor or how to bring more awareness to the domestic abuse that's been happening. And some people do not like realize that's happening here in Marin, but we've Gretsman and me, we've seen like cases around here in Marin County before. They showed some cases, and I was just surprised how there were cases like that. So yeah, anyways, Gretsman, what do you do now in Maya? What are you learning currently?
Currently we're learning, they're called the 3D, so distract, delegate, or get directly involved in the situation. And so we're learning these ways to intervene in the case that we see something in our day-to-day lives. For example, say we're at a grocery store getting groceries for our house, for our family, whatever, and we see maybe a couple is arguing and one of them seems to be getting more aggressive. The 3Ds, you can choose whichever way best suits you. So if you feel you are more of a direct person, you can directly intervene and go up to the couple and be like, hey, are you both okay? Things seem to be getting kind of aggressive. Why don't we just take a few breaths? All right. And kind of intervene in that sort of way. Or you can distract by maybe pushing your shopping cart toward the couple and being like, oh, hey, could you get that for me? Sorry, bad at shopping carts. And that kind of de-escalates the situation as it gets focused off of whatever they're arguing about. Or delegate is where you could find maybe a store worker, or if that particular grocery store has security guards, you could ask someone who works there, it's like, hey, they seem to be getting in an argument and it might escalate to something more. Could you please go check on them, make sure everything's okay? And so that's what we're learning right now.
Yeah, I remember the name bystander effect, and I just wanted to add a little bit more that it's basically people saying like they see an unacceptable behavior and they act upon it, and they decide to do something in their position that they are in. And I really liked how you said about the 3 days. In our meeting, we did have like, we had to go into breakout rooms and discuss about what different scenarios, what we can do to intervene. And I feel like that's like really good for you guys to practice, even if you guys are not in the meetings, like you guys should practice on your own. Those viewers who are watching or listening, because it's very important to help each other out. And we have actually seen a video of a woman like being drunk, and there was like several people passing by that saw her drunk while like walking with this stranger, like this guy, and she got raped at the end of the video. But they rewind the video, and they like demonstrated 3 people that like she passed by, and what they showed, like what they could have done to prevent that. And so it's like it's not their fault at like because like there's, you know, rapist people, but there's like an option for us to take action, and that's what we want to voice here in the show. But that's that's what I wanted to add. And Santi, do you have a question for Gretsman?
Yes, I wanted to ask, like, what are some warning signs of a bad relationship? Because, like you mentioned before, sometimes one is not aware of being in an unhealthy relationship. So, what are some signs for our viewers to kind of get a little more of an understanding of what
Yeah,
can lead
that's
to
a really
domestic
great
violence?
question. Thank you. So some warning signs can be if you're in an argument with your partner, they seem to get more and more aggressive as the argument continues, and they're not necessarily being physically aggressive, but the way that they are wording things or their tone of voice feels threatening. That's definitely a warning sign. If your partner is very passive aggressive in their behaviors and how they speak to you, that's also another warning sign. Or if they're controlling or trying to isolate you from your friends and your family, or they're trying to monitor your every text, all the apps that you use, what are you posting on your social media. Also, another warning sign is if you feel that you have to ask for permission to do a lot of things. So if you want to go out with your friends and you feel you have to ask for your permission from your partner, that's definitely a sign that something is wrong. And I think those are really like the main warning signs.
Yeah, I agree, and I can also add that they can like the main warning sign is like being overprotective. And something that I learned from Maya was that it's best not to share your passwords to your partner, because it can bring this like problems with among each other. And I feel like well, they told us that if you do end up giving or sharing your password and decide one day not to give them your password from your phone, they might have they might think that you're cheating or you're hiding something, and that will bring more problems. And so it's just best to not share your password from your phone. But yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for listing those warning signs. Those are all really great. Like just to know, because I mean, relationships should be mutual. And personally, I don't think, there should be any kind of conflict with if someone leaves, they have to ask permission. Like that just seems very controlling. And I thank you for sharing those. Um, Going off of those warning signs, um, what can someone do to like help a friend or family member that is dealing with an unhealthy relationship?
I think the best, like the number one thing to do, um, is definitely be there as a form of support for them. Because even if you can't do much else, them knowing that they have someone that they can turn to will be a huge help. Um, Also giving them, if you can kind of direct them toward resources. So for a Center of Domestic Peace, they have 2 hotlines, a text line and a just a call line. Um, and um, Again, doing your best to support them and trying, it's difficult, but trying not to get frustrated if they want to stay with their abuser, because no one wants to see that their loved one stay in an abusive relationship. Um, but it's all the harder if the victim cannot feel that they can trust their friends or their family to help them in their situation.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. What are some things that someone, going back to that question, what are some things that people shouldn't do in those situations? Um, like as in
Um,
something that could get them, I don't know, not to not escalate the situation, make it any worse.
right. Some things that they definitely should not do is if the abuser seems to be getting more and more dangerous, don't directly confront them, because that not only puts the victim at risk, but also yourself at risk. Um, and I think that in the best thing to do in that kind of situation where the abuser is getting more and more aggressive and dangerous is to call the police in that situation, because that the victim's life is in danger. Another thing that I would advise not to do for the family or friend of the victim is, again, do your best to not at least show your frustration, because the victim is already very limited in who they have for support, who they feel that they can trust. So you demonstrating like, oh, why are you going back to your partner? They've hurt you so many times. Why can't you just see I'm trying to help you? That really is just shutting the door of you being a support for them, even if that's not your intention. They may not want to go back to their abuser, but they may feel as though they need to. And so showing that frustration really limits their trust in you. And so, again, just try to not show that to the victim. Be frustrated on your own, but don't really express it. Otherwise, you may be shutting off one of the few support lines that they have.
Mhm.
Awesome.
And
But go
I
ahead,
do
Anna.
wanted to add that you guys can also, like for peer counselors or just in general, like friends giving advice to other friends, you should not give like law advice if you don't like are very informed. It's best to go to a professional.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think this is very key also, that you should not make the victim be attached to you, because then they're going to be dependent on you. And I know for some abusers like they're very over controlling, and so they're taking care of everything, and so the victim like doesn't have anything in charge, and so they might feel very vulnerable when they leave their victim, I mean their abuser, sorry. and they might feel like they're not they can't live like dependent of themselves. And so like you have to help them learn how to be dependent and, you know, live their life as a normal, well, I wouldn't say normal, but just like living their life dependently, you know. But that's what I just wanted to add. And
Yes.
so did you wanted to say anything, Gretsman?
I just want to say I totally agree with you. Thank you for adding that. That's very important to also add. You definitely don't want to make them become dependent on you as they were dependent on their abuser before.
Yeah, and so come back. We hope that you enjoyed the song that we just played. We left off talking about what some things that you should not do when you talk to a friend or someone that you're actually trying to help. And one of the main things that we talked was to not push away the person who needs help. And so I wanted to continue on and ask, as a peer counselor, what have you learned to help a person who's dealing with domestic abuse? And Gretchen, do you want to add something?
As a peer counselor, what I've learned is a lot of tools to help me be a better listener. One of the things we learned, at least in one of my first few Maya meetings, is active listening, and not being a passive listener. So actively listening to what the person is saying, what the victim is saying. And if you're unsure if you've got their story right or if you've got what they're feeling correctly, reiterate what they said, kind of summarize what you've heard and what you think they are saying, and retell that to them and ask them, hey, did I get this correct? If they say yes, then great. If they say no, then ask them, what did I get wrong? Could you please tell it to me again so I make sure I'm understanding you correctly? And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, because I am definitely more of a passive listener, where I just kind of agree, it's like, yeah, and not really retaining all that information. And so those tools to help me actively listen has really helped me, just also in my classes as well, to retain that information.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you. Sometimes it slips by, like something that you thought you like kind of knew from class, but then turns out you didn't really understand. But I think you were mentioning part of the OARs that we have been learning, and it's the OARS, and it's the open questions for O, and A for affirmation, R for reflection, and S for summary. And you were describing a little bit about summary. And so I know there's a lot of information that we learned, and we can't unfortunately give that much information in this short show that we have, but maybe in the later future we can discuss more about it. But I did wanted to talk a little bit more of what you can do to help the abuser if they do decide to stay with, what you can do to help the victim who decides to stay with the abuser, or if they decide to leave the abuser. And I liked how you mentioned summary, because it's important to hear what the victim wants to do, because it's their choice. You cannot make their choice for them, because it can lead them to leave you because they feel like they're not being listened, because it's not their choice. And so a few things I did wanted to mention is, if they do decide to stay, make sure they communicate with their partner, saying like what they do not like what they're doing, and make sure that if they're feeling safe to do that, that they should do that. If not, then I wouldn't recommend, because it can escalate from there. And so you can also discuss a safety planning, just in case if things do go bad for the victim deciding to stay with the abuser. And if they want to leave the abuser, they can also, again, make the safety plan, have pepper spray, have public places meetings with the abuser, so that they can say that they don't want to be with them anymore. And so if anything happens, they can call out in the public and they can help. And I actually have a PDF link for a team safety plan. So we do plan to give that link under the description or comments below if you guys do want to see how to make a safety plan for you or for your family or for your friends.
Due to our time, I'm not going to ask any more questions. However, as I was going through their website, there was a video that mentioned that Marin County, their #1 crime is domestic violence, which I did not know of. So for those who are listening on the radio, I'm going to say the phone number you can call for English and Spanish if you're currently experiencing domestic abuse, and it's 415-924-6616. I'm going to say it one more time. It's 415-924-6616, and that phone number is for both English and Spanish, and it's 24 hours. And again, if you guys are experiencing or know someone who's experiencing domestic violence, you can reach out to us, to Annalie, as she is part of the Maya organization, as well as with our guest. And we're going to be leaving down on the description of this video the links to where you guys can get more resources. Otherwise, thank you so much for being on our show. I really learned a lot, and thank you for being part of Maya and being there for those who are going through domestic violence. Like you mentioned before, it's a hard thing to be dealing with, and sometimes you can be confused and not know what's an unhealthy or healthy relationship. So thank you for being part of Maya, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing, because what you do, it is making a difference in other people's lives.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you to say, and that really warms my heart. And again, thank you for having me on your show. And I'm really happy that I could share more information about Maya and domestic abuse relationships and kind of what to do in those situations and some tools we've learned.
What Maya's doing and what you've been doing is fantastic. My mind's absolutely blown with all this good information that you just gave us. And like I said, I think it's really important, especially for high schoolers, because I feel like it's super common. Like Santi was saying, like the most common crime here in Marin County is domestic abuse. And domestic abuse can come in all shapes and forms. And what you're doing is amazing. And again, thank you so much for being on the show. We really, really appreciate it.
Really appreciate you having me on the show, and that you're doing a segment on Maya and on domestic abuse.